Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will be sharing with you a story time, an experience that I just had happen to me during summer flying. And this snippets of this video will definitely be in a video where I talk about me working a 6-day block reserve, but I decided to separate this full story time because it was super juicy, a lot happened, so stay tuned. Hey y'all. Oh my god. Oh my god. I don't even know what's today. I was on call for 6 days straight. If you're new to my channel, with the airline company that I work for, we get assigned reserve 6 days every month until you get to the seniority level where you no longer get assigned reserve, but you can still pick it up if you want to. But typically, it's 6 days in a month for everybody. On my 6 days, I started off not getting standby. So I got airport sit or airport standby, where I went to sit at the airport for 4 hours hoping to be used. I was not used, I was released, and I came home. So on day 2, the following day, which is day 2 of the 6 days, I got assigned a lean over, which started in the evening or at night on day 2 of the 6 days and overlapped into day 3 of the 6 days. So essentially, I've been used for 3 days now. And then on day 3, I received on day 4. So that ended that. Everything was good. So at 12 a.m. midnight on day 4 of the 6-day A days or reserve days, I got a call from crew scheduling assigning me a 3-day rotation, which was supposed to start at, report time was 6:30 a.m. on day 4 to end on my last day of the 6-day block, which was day 6. The rotation essentially was, the trip changed, so I have to give you all the rundown of what it was supposed to be, only to give you what it became afterwards because it changed. So initially, I was supposed to work 2 legs the first day, which is work 2 flights on the 4th day of my A day. And then on the 5th day, I was supposed to work 4 legs, which is 4 flights on the 5th day. And then on the go home day, which is the last day, I was supposed to work, 2 flights. So I was supposed to do Seattle to Orlando, Orlando to Cincinnati, and then lay over there. And then the following day, I was supposed to do Cincinnati to Atlanta, Atlanta to Memphis, Memphis back to Atlanta, and then Atlanta to Greensboro, which is in, I think, North Carolina. And then lay over at Greensboro. And then on my last day, do Greensboro back to Atlanta, and then Atlanta to Seattle. So it was all said and done. Everything was set to go. I wasn't pretty happy with that rotation anyway because it had 4 legs. And ever since I started flying, I've never done 4 flights in a day. The maximum I have done is 3 flights in a day, and that was like just 2 occasions. That's about it. I usually try and limit myself to the average number of flights we typically have at our location or our base, which is 2 flights per day. So I wasn't particularly happy, but like I said, I was going to report this experience and I wanted it to be as organic as possible. Okay, so we started off strong. The first day was very stressful. It was just a long day because we did a very long flight from Seattle to Orlando. It's like almost a 6-hour flight, you know, so it's a long flight. So it was very tiring. But we made it through, and then from there we did Orlando to Cincinnati, which was quite short, so it wasn't that bad. On the next day, which was the 5th day, or in this case, the 2nd day of this 3-day rotation, we started off trying to do the Cincinnati to Atlanta, but there was some thunderstorms, weather situation going on in Atlanta, and it was so bad. I sensed something like this was going to happen. So even when on my layover, I kept looking at my my app where we get communication with regards to what's going to happen with the flights back and forth, among other things. So I kept watching it and seeing if anything had been communicated because I felt in my spirit. I felt in my spirit somewhere that something was going to happen, like a delay, a cancellation, or something was going to happen. And lo and behold, we get to the airport, we get our pickup, we get picked up. It was raining, like it looked very bad. The weather looked really bad when we were leaving hotel, and we were surprised we had not received any communication with regards to a delay or cancellation. So we get to the airport, and then Atlanta is on fire because of weather situation, ground stop back and forth, planes backing up. It was just chaotic in Atlanta. So because of the ground stop in Atlanta and our flight was super short, we could not take off. So we started boarding and everything, boarded the entire plane, and then only for us to hear that Atlanta has had a ground stop. Initially it was for 1 hour, and then they changed it to 2 hours. So once that happened, the pilot was okay. The captain was like, no, let's deplane. Let's get everybody off the plane, because it's better to have them off the plane so they can walk around, get something to eat, stretch their legs. I mean, it's a pain getting all your stuff and getting off the plane again. However, imagine sitting in the tube for 2 hours. No, not enough leg room. You can't stretch. You can't stand up. Like you don't have the freedom to do what you want. So the captain decided that, okay, since that's happened, the ground stop is now extended to beyond the 1 hour to 2.5 hours, let's get everybody off the plane so they can do what they need to do, and then while we wait. So that's the first thing. So we deplaned again, got everybody off the plane, grabbed everything you brought on board and got off the plane. And we did lose a lot of people that were connecting to other international destinations, ended up getting off the flight and getting rebooked on different flights, and then or using a different route. Also, people left, went home, others booked other flights as well. So what had happened was that as a flight attendants, we were hungry because we didn't really have that much of a meal to eat that day, and plus because of this delay, it means our duty day is going to be prolonged. So let's say our duty day today was supposed to be 8 hours, now it's going to be about 10 to 12 hours long. So we decided to go get something to eat while we waited, and then eventually in the process of us getting our food, it was time for us to go. Okay, so still the weather was bad, and I have this, I think it's called Flight Aware. If you're a flight attendant, please go ahead and download that app. This is not an ad or anything. What it does is that it shows you what the pilots see. So the weather situation in the airport or the destination or the routes that you're going through. And then it has the routes of every single plane that is flying over the US, going wherever it is that it's going. It gives you access to that information, so you can actually see if the flight deck is saying the weather is bad, you can actually see the weather on your phone. So it's exactly what they see, that's what we see. It tells you the altitude, where we are and everything. And I could still see that the weather was very bad in Atlanta. It was. But the issue is that once the ground stops started happening, everything got backed up. So if, let's say, 10 planes were supposed to have landed at point A, now all those 10 planes did not land at point A, at time A. So now everybody's going to end up showing up at time B. That's what happened essentially. Because everything was backed up, we all ended up, all the flights, all the planes that were initially supposed to land in Atlanta at some point in time within the reasonable time intervals, ended up there at the same time. So as of the time that we landed from Cincinnati to Atlanta, there were 85 planes ahead of us. Literally 85 planes ahead of us trying to find gates. And we get it, Atlanta is big and all and it's busy, but they were hot today. Oh my God, it was so bad. Our plane ended up sitting on the tarmac for 2.5 hours. Yes, so remember, the ground stop caused us to wait at Cincinnati for about 2 hours, almost 2 hours. The flight was 1 hour or less. Then we got stuck on the tarmac at Atlanta for 2.5 hours. As a flight attendant, personally, I'm not really bothered in the sense that as long as those boarding doors are closed, I'm getting paid my flight time, my flight pay. And then remember, on this day, I was supposed to do 4 legs, and this issue started with leg 1, the first flight. So we hadn't even gotten to the rest of the 3. That's how the whole show started off, okay? So when we got to the airport in ATL, Atlanta, Georgia, we sat on the tarmac for almost 2.5 hours. So the flight was supposed to be an expert service because it was a short flight. And it was expected that there was going to be turbulence here and there. And there was turbulence here and there. But initially when we were boarding, we sat there for like 30 minutes in the plane, almost 30 minutes. And then we served water. So we served water in the meantime because we thought the ground stop was just going to be for 1 hour. But then when they changed it to 2 hours, then we had to deplane. So we did give people water and something to drink in the meantime before we deplaned. And then once we took off, it got turbulent, so then turbulence was bad, so we could not do service. And it was such a short flight, so we didn't even have time to make it work. Once we landed, we had over 2 hours to do service. So we literally did service while on the runway, like on the tarmac. That's what happened. And we sat there. We did service like 2 times. We had enough time to do 2 times. That's how crazy it was. People were anxious, others started feeling sick. This lady was so uncomfortable, we had to try and keep her. It was just too much going on. And at some point, we were like an hour and 30 minutes in. We had 76 planes ahead of us. It was just crazy, and it was just, I don't know how Atlanta is still standing on their feet right now, because the way the situation was, it was just so bad. And I know it's nobody's fault per se, but then it's one of those things where, and for me, what was interesting is that even with all that the company did to get people to their destinations, there were a few people that were still complaining and nagging about the fact that they had to sit here for so long or blah, blah, blah. And then in my mind, I'm like, they could have canceled. They could have canceled and you would have been left sitting home. And because of all this that has happened, Atlanta would have taken a few days to recover. And then you have to waste, like, they could have canceled for you to go back to where you're coming from or possibly sleep in the airport. But we decided to still push and try and make it work. So to still have people complaining about things that were out of our control, it was just so funny. But then again, the flip side is that we had others that were super grateful and thankful that we were able to stick through it and make it work to the very end and to get them to their destination safely as well. So that's how we started off with the second day of this 3-day trip. So as a result of the delay and everything, a trip that was blocked for an hour and I think 19 minutes ended up being blocked for 4 hours and I think 30 minutes or 4 hours and 19 minutes. So something that was supposed to be 1 hour ended up being a trip that was supposed to be 1 hour ended up being over 4 hours. That's what happened with the first trip. And as a result of all that, we could not work our other 3 rotations. So essentially scheduling rescheduled us for that day and allowed us to work another trip back from Atlanta, right from Atlanta back to Ohio. But this time we went to Columbus, Ohio instead of Cincinnati. That ended that day. Honestly, by the time we were done on the second day, it was 2 a.m. We got to the hotel like at 3 a.m. That's how long the day was. So it was not fun at all. It was definitely very stressful and tiring. But I do plan on posting a video where I talk about some of the things you should look out for if you're a new flight attendant or trying to become a flight attendant during summertime when you're flying during the summer. So I will talk a lot more about these issues, but these are some of the things that could happen during summer flying. Honestly, it's only being in the US or being a flight attendant that I've learned that summer flying is not always fun. I thought flying during the summer would be amazing because the weather should be great. But apparently the kind of weather situation on the East Coast of the United States is not so great. There are always thunderstorms here and there. And on the West Coast, we're like cruising and perfectly fine. And then when you go to the East Coast, whatever's in the water over there or the air over there is just on a whole different level. I'm definitely considering, do I really want to move to the East Coast? Not really at this point, but that's what that was for day 2. Day 3 started off strong. Everything was good. It did look bad. It was so dark clouds, like it was raining and all that. Like it looked like the weather was bad, like bad out there. But amidst all the changes that happened to our rotation, we went from 4 legs on the second day to 2 legs. And then on day 3, which is the go home day, which is the 6th day of this 6-day block, we were supposed to work 2 flights, remember? We're supposed to do Greensboro to Atlanta and then Atlanta to Seattle. But what happened was that because we did not end up going to Greensboro and we went to Columbus, Ohio, what scheduling did was to schedule us to deadhead. Deadheading is when the company essentially flies you to the point where they actually want you to work out of, or simply just flies you back home to base. And they pay you during that time too. So it's actually part of your flight time and you get flight pay for that. So we ended up having to deadhead from Columbus, Ohio to Atlanta only to work the Atlanta to Seattle flight, which was fine. I don't mind. I was supposed to do 6 legs. Now I'm doing 4 legs. And 1 I'm not even working. So technically I'm doing 6. I'm working 6 flights and I'm flying on the 4th one. I'm not complaining. No big deal. But then again, like I said, the weather looked good. It felt good, but it was good for me to be in the hotel sleeping and sipping on some hot tea. Not good to be on a plane going to Atlanta. But yeah, when we got out, we expected a delay, but still no delay. We're still They started boarding. Okay, we were boarding. This is us in Columbus, Ohio, trying to get to Atlanta. They finished boarding, and then there was another ground stop again in Atlanta because of weather. And honestly, before I left the hotel room, I saw 2 tornado warnings. One around Virginia and then the other one around Birmingham, Alabama. So on Highway 59 or whatever. So I was surprised the tower was still allowing us to go ahead to board and do all those things. But then again, we're dealing with operations. They're very hopeful that things will get better down the line. So they're not going to stop the show simply because they expect things to be bad or things are bad right now. They also equally expect things to get better because the weather eventually did move away from Atlanta. So it worked out. So there was another stop, but this time around it was for 30 minutes. So for me, it felt like deja vu. It felt like the second day all over again, or day 5 all over again, because the last time they said 30 minutes, the last time they said 1 hour, it became 2 hours. So then I was like, oh my God, not yesterday, happening all over again. So, but then luckily this time it was 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, we were all set to go. We took off and bam, we landed in Atlanta. Our other flight though, the one we were supposed to work from Atlanta to Seattle, did get delayed for a few minutes, but it wasn't as long as the ones from yesterday. It was just delayed for about like 30 minutes, just enough time for us to land and then also get to the gate, do security checks and all that, safety checks and all that, and then start boarding. So that was it. But what was going on in Atlanta on the second day of my rotation, when the ground stops and the issues happened and the weather issue happened, the line in the airport, if you think you've seen a lot of people at the Atlanta airport, you haven't seen this. It was bad. It was bad. Like the line at the airport literally was from one concourse to the other. Like literally, you would have people at customer service desks in concourse A. Literally, the line went all the way to B. It was that bad, guys. It was so bad, and people everywhere, people sitting on the floor, people sleeping on the floor, like everywhere was filled up, and it was so sad. And it was nice and funny because and I do have a story time to share with regards to this instance, but I'm just going to share this here. But when we got to the gate, because I've had this happen to me, this is like the second time this has happened to me as a crew, where we got to the gate and everybody started clapping for us for showing up because it was late. It was like well after midnight. By the time we were done working that flight, it was like 3 a.m. in the morning. You know, it's like working a flight only to work a red eye again. It was just too much going on, but they were so thankful that we showed up because, you know, crews can time out. We might exceed our duty period and opt off of the trip and choose not to fly because we don't want to put your life at risk and our life at risk. Because mind you, if we reach our maximum duty day period and we decide to move forward and continue to work, the reasoning why there's a cap with how long your duty day can be is for rest and fatigue reasons, you know? So there is the potential risk of you being tired at that point or up to that point. So if you decide to work, you must make sure that you're giving 100%. So if we're not at 100%, safety is at risk. Because remember, the primary role of a flight attendant on that plane is not to serve you cookies and Coca-Cola. No, that's not the primary goal. Our primary goal is for safety reasons. In case of an emergency, we as a crew, with the help of some passengers, will be able to get you all off this plane as safely as possible. As you've seen has been happening these past few weeks, where evacuations off of aircrafts have been very smooth, people not getting hurt or injured in any way. That's what the training is about. That's what we're prepared for. That's our goal, making sure that in case of anything, we get everybody together and we're off that plane as safely, as quickly as possible. So that's our primary goal. So once we get to the maximum of our duty day period, the FAA sees that by that time, as flight attendants or as crew members, we're tired, we're exhausted, so we might not be able to perform at our best. And if we're not able to perform at our best, what if a safety incident happens? How are we going to deal with it? What if a medical happens? Somebody starts to get a heart attack, stroke, something, somebody faints, you know? So those are all the things that you should think about if you're a passenger and you hear that a crew gets timed out and they opt off and decide not to work the trip. I know it's an inconvenience to you in terms of where you're trying to go and your time and everything, but also think of it this way. They're there for safety reasons. So if they are not in a position to perform their best in case of any emergency or safety related issue, that puts your life at even a much higher risk. So always balance that out and don't be too offended, okay? Don't be too hurt because it's all for your own good. But Atlanta was on fire. People everywhere, chaos everywhere. So at the end of the day, this 3-day trip that was supposed to end my 6-day reserve day ended up being a 4-day trip. Yeah, by the time I ended, due to the delays that happened in between everything, on my 6th day, I had literally worked myself, or we had literally been worked into our 4th, I had been worked into a 7th day. So by the time I was done with this rotation, it was on day 7. Midnight, well after midnight. So that's what happened. But even though we were delayed back and forth and all that good stuff, it wasn't that bad. And the crew, oh my God, the crew that I worked this rotation with, if you're a new flight attendant, or you're just coming out of training, or you're trying to become a flight attendant, wherever you are in that journey, your crew can make or break your experience. Like, when people say that, it is so true. Oh my gosh, shout out to Shay, shout out to Natalie and Joe, the flight lead. Shout out to all of you. If you come across this video, like, your crew can make or break the experience. We were so positive, we were making jokes, we were like, although things were going south in operations and all, our energy was still positive. We still remained positive. We were still having fun. We were still cracking jokes. We were still keeping customers comfortable. Like, I enjoyed the vibe that we had. Like, we worked so well together. We took care of our customers at any point in time. We were checking up on them, asking people if they needed something, giving people what they needed. Because sometimes I know I just started, but sometimes some flight attendants be holding those snacks hostage. Some people be holding the snack, the water, the juice, whatever it is, hostage. And in my mind, I'm like, this flight has been catered with this. Whatever's on this flight is for this flight. So whether we use it or not, it's still for this flight. So whatever, it doesn't matter if somebody wants three snacks or 2 bottles of water or whatever. If we have it and we can give it, why not? Why hold it hostage only to leave it in the plane and let it be there? Like, but the crew were amazing. Oh my God. I feel that's what made this not so stressful or not so bad, because although we were going through all this ringer and all that, we were communicating, we were texting each other, we were very cordial. Everybody was just so nice. The vibe, the energy was just so good. And everybody was so hardworking. So it's like, it's not like one person is forced to do everything because others just want to hide and sit around and do nothing. But oh my God, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. Not amazing as in the chaos that happened, but the crew that I worked with. And truly, your crew can make or break your experience. Because like I said, negative energy is very sucking and draining. So if you have positive energy, it keeps you going, it keeps the momentum and the flow going. You feel good, you feel better, you're happy, your crew's happy, everybody's like, you know, happy. But this is the life of a flight attendant. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.